Hi, so this week's theme has been goals, and we've been talking about that. And the reel today is also on goals and really how to have a nice, neat, cute little process to achieve the goals that you want to achieve. I know that the word goal itself sounds so intimidating, and you don't want your life burdened with kind of goals. Life is meant to be lived, and goals just sound like they're interfering with that process. So don't think of it as goals, think of it as your life's desires. That's all it is. It is your financial responsibilities, it is the material things that you want to own, it is the experiences that you want to build. All those together really are goals. So we can just call them desires. So, like your child's education, that's a financial responsibility. It's a desire that you want to achieve. Travel is a desire you want to achieve. Owning a home is a desire you want to achieve. So let's just stick with desires and not goals, right? So when it comes to these desires, the first thing and the most important thing is that you start to define some of this a little bit more in detail. Start thinking about this rather than leaving it to chance or luck. What do I mean by that? Now, let's say your desire is to travel India, all of India, for a month, and you want to do that, and that's your desire. It could be anything. Even children can work on this. It could be that your teenager wants to buy a cycle or wants to gift their sibling something. Those are also desires which can be defined. Important thing is to define the details. So when we talk about travel, you have to start defining what kind of travel is it. Are you going to travel by road all around India? Are you going to travel by air, combination of road, air, rail? Are you going to go to all 28 states? Are you going to go only to the main 6-8 states? What is it that you really desire to do? If your child is planning to buy a cycle and that's the desire, then start defining things like, okay, are you only going to buy the cycle? Are you going to buy a helmet as well? Do you need a lamp in front of the cycle for, early morning rides and things like that? Define what the desire really is and what are you going to do with that cycle? Is it just to ride in the society? Is it to do long rides, maybe with parents or friends, whatever it might be? So that kind of detailing will help in knowing what the desire really is and which direction are you headed with this desire. The best thing is to write it down, but if you're too lazy to write down, at least maybe just do a voice note to yourself. I want to travel all of India for a month, and that's my biggest desire. Do that and stick it up somewhere, or write it on a post it and stick it up somewhere. So it helps to break down your desires and really write it down. Leave yourself a voice note or whatever format works for you. The second thing about this detailing is to actually measure your goal. It's easy to measure your travel desire because you can put the monetary impact of travel by road, your accommodation, your travel within the city, museum costs and stuff like that. Buying a cycle is easy to quantify. But when the goals are slightly more to do with your inward self, so I want to improve my health in the next 6 months, I want to give back more to society over the next 1 year. These are also desires, right? However, these desires are harder to quantify. So what does it mean? I want to improve my health in the next 6 months. So you have to start defining it. What is that improvement? How are you going to achieve that improvement? Which is the kind of activity of your fitness activity of your choice? How much will it cost to get those things like equipment or gym membership? If you want to, cycling is a good activity to improve health, then how much does a cycle cost? So start trying to measure your desires financially and a monetary impact of your desire. Giving back to society is a great desire to have, but how will you measure it? How much are you giving back time? Are you giving back money? So even your time costs money, right? So you have to start kind of measuring it out also. The next thing you have to think about is making your desires a little bit time bound if you really want to achieve them, right? I mean, okay, I want to travel around India, but do I want to do it after a year, after 2 years, after 5 years? Only then will you be able to understand how you can afford it, how much of the travel you can afford. Again, we spoke about detailing. Is it luxury travel? Is it camping? Is it glamping, which is the trend these days? Whatever works for you, right? But define these details, because that will help you achieve it most, and give yourself a very limited time. Now, the time could be 3 years also. It doesn't have to be 6 months, but define the timeline so that you work towards it. It's like an anchor for you, right? To work towards achieving those desires. Now, you might be thinking that all this about defining it, measuring it, keeping a timeline is kind of, for these small goals, not so important. Honestly, it is important for all kinds of goals. And goals can be, of different types. But it is very important for some of those large size goals, like buying a house, for example. Now, that is a goal where you really need to dig deeper into all of this stuff of defining it, detailing it, how much are you going to spend, by when. But the more important thing is to understand whether these desires, these goals are actually attainable, achievable or not. So for example, a 1 month travel around India after 2 years sounds pretty attainable. But now let's say that your desire is to travel for an entire year around India and you want to do it next year. Is that attainable? It means you'll have to take a sabbatical from work. It means you'll have to fund your travel for an entire year. It means you'll have to dig into your savings. When you come back, will you have enough savings left? So you have to understand, is it attainable? Or should you leave this 1 year travel for, say, 3 years later, when you have saved up enough, when you've had the time to save up enough, and you've had the opportunity to think through your sabbatical and what you will do after you come back from your sabbatical? These kind of questions also make a big difference in large goals like buying a house, where you have to think through, you can't say, I want to buy this house in 6 months, and you have no savings. You'll dig into your pension fund, pull out all that money, only enough to make, say, a 10% down payment on a loan, and then have a huge EMI which eats into your income. Instead, do you want to rethink this goal and say, let me push it 5 years down the line, save up enough for, say, putting up 40 to 50% of the equity from your savings, and then taking a smaller size loan so that your EMIs are not going to burden you. So these, this whole process of defining, of measuring, of making sure your goal is attainable, of putting a timeline, deadline to your goal, helps in all kinds of goals. And remember, again, I'm going back to the word goals because I'm so used to it, but it's life's desires, really. And you have space to accommodate several desires in life. Some of them will be priority, some of them not so much. But when you go through this process of defining it, you can easily tell what is a priority, what is not, how much time do you have, and what are your resources available to achieve it in that time. And when you think through it, you stop overburdening the resources you have now. You are more efficient in using them, and believe me, you are that much closer to attaining all those desires in your life.